Hello, I'm Sean Turner, Heritage Party councillor in Kent. Residents are starting to notice, as the net zero agenda affects them more, that the agenda isn't actually about the environment. So what is it about? Let's contemplate, as we have done in previous videos, where it comes from. A large global organisation, unelected, such as the United Nations, set out their 17 Sustainable Development Goals with support from global institutions such as the World Economic Forum, which in fact have members within them that are also part of our Parliament, create a vision of a non-carbon based future. Governments around the world create acts such as the Climate Change Act, which then allows local councils to create climate emergencies within your local area. This opens up funding streams from central government departments to mitigate the risk. The belief, which is pushed psychologically by lots of different institutions such as the mainstream media, the Met Office, that there is actually an emergency. Coupled into this, councils start to create circular economies, which include partnerships with activist-led non-governmental organisations. This has now progressed, and residents are starting to feel the force of what it's about. It seems to be about control, land, and creating green jobs. So as the narrative starts to dwindle, new terms are created such as sustainability, biodiversity. How do they then channel this down into the next generation? We saw before in our information videos that Kent County Council, for example, with their behavioural change officers, are using non-statutory guidance on climate leadership, climate action plans to be implemented into the schools. This guidance comes from the Department for Education. Kent County Council created their Greener Kent Schools Circular Economy, so they can bunch everything together and push this narrative psychologically onto children, parents, teachers and governors. Within the circular economy, they're essentially funded groups, activist-led organisations such as the Climate Ambassadors Programme and Sustainability in Education. They create training programmes and webinars. They then invite governors and teachers to join to try and push this narrative within the school, education facility, or even nursery. Why don't we focus on nature rather than narrative? Change in administration at the Kent County Council. It would seem that these webinar groups are now approaching the district council. I thought it might be a good idea to join one of these webinars just to see what they're about.
Your climate action plan, but in terms of turning it into a plan, you'll want to put it in a format where you've also got things like who will be responsible, what are the time frames in which you're going to do it, and you'll have that as your shared working document where you're kind of working your way through those and updating each other on progress. There's another question a bit higher up, or a couple of comments about being cash strapped, little time or money for funding training and development. I guess one thing I just want to mention is kind of a notion of proportionality. So we've been doing these sessions and we're talking a lot to settings from across the board, from like early years to further education, and many settings are just at very different positions and points in terms of what they're able to look at and think about. I think what's important is understanding where are there things within the work that you're doing with a setting where you can bring a sustainability angle to that, where are some places where you just want to take the first steps and put them.
By tracing the history of how these groups have evolved, it looks like the Reading University has a large part to play in this. I was struck immediately by the language that was being used.
Finally, I just want to mention we are doing a range of these events. This was the one that we arranged specifically for governors, but we've also got some more early years targeted events and some more general events which are really well attended and found useful by primary and secondary settings. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. We use that.
It seems there's a lot of indoctrination around this. The webinar was 1 hour long, and my microphone was switched off. I had to ask questions through text, as I was so shocked by the outcome of this session, and noticing that the District Council is currently pushing a similar webinar. I decided to confront the council and ask them what are the psychological implications of what they're involved in.
An online climate ambassadors programme event as part of its climate change campaign. This initiative, which is supported by non-governmental organisations, offers non-curriculum based training. However, a recent response to a Freedom of Information request from the Department of Education confirms that the guidance provided for the climate action strategy is non-statutory. Additionally, the Department of Education has stated that climate action plans are not currently mandated. Question: given that the district does not have educational authority, why does the council feel the need to introduce and support the non-mandated emotional conditioning of parents, teachers and governors using public funds through supporting the implementation of climate action plans in our educational settings?
I must apologise in advance about the sound recordings from the chamber. It would seem that Maidstone Borough Council have spent far too much public funds on the decarbonisation of their estate rather than the upkeep of their sound system.
I am actually concerned about this. It's an awful lot of money. £7.7 million of taxpayers' money to be spent essentially on our own office block.
And as a voluntary eco-schools assessor in Kent for a decade or more, I was greatly pleased to see how the non-curricular work by young children and their adult guiders led to a deep interest in subjects like recycling, growing food, water control and biodiversity. Lessons that I know the children took home to teach their parents, most of them unaware of those points. I would quote from the gov.uk guidance for sustainability leadership and climate action plans in education. The Sustainability and Climate Change Strategy for Education states that by September 2025, all education settings will have nominated a sustainability lead and put in place a climate action plan. This includes early year settings, schools, multi-academy trusts, colleges and universities. As you say, this is non-statutory guidance, but support is available to nurseries, schools and colleges and provided by the Department for Education through three organisations: Sustainability Support for Education, the Climate Ambassador Programme and the National Education Nature Park. There are other organisations providing courses, products and services to support an education setting and their approach to climate change. Though this guidance is not mandatory, it's the choice of schools to engage with this guidance. Many Maidstone schools already have someone in post for the sustainability lead role, and we have had several requests from schools requesting support for creating a climate action plan from those sustainability leads. The training webinar itself is being offered free of charge through Climate Ambassadors, one of the three organisations the Department for Education specified. NBC have not provided any funding for this. The invitation to join the free training session is in no way mandatory for schools to join, but is available for interested parties, and we have over 10 schools registered to attend so far. The training session was arranged as a result of demand from school sustainability leads. NBC are happy to connect schools with the resources they need to deliver a climate action plan if they choose to do so, and at no cost to public funds managed by
emergency measures is that the UK contributes less than 1% of global CO2 emissions. Being a voice for children. After a recent circular economy webinar, Sustainably in Education, I observed that these non-governmental organisations, with their ideological agendas cloaked in educational funding, claim to promote critical thinking and empowering students. Question. Before allocating public funds, have Maidstone Borough councillors and officers considered the psychological risks to children being told that the world is ending if they don't take action?
I will have to check the psychological question with officers, but I do not believe so, and as I mentioned, we are not allocating any public funds on this.
It's time for another Green Party theatre act.
Last Climate Transition, Corporate and Environmental Services Policy Advisory Committee meeting, a comment was made that Councillor Jeffrey has an ideological obsession with climate change. I would like to ask Councillor Jeffrey why he has an ideological obsession with climate change.
As you will hear, ideology plays a massive part in this. These people are making decisions on your behalf which will affect your home, travel and freedoms. Just take a listen to this.
And it kind of picks up on Mr. Turner's points as well a little bit, I guess. I mean, I was born quite a long time ago. My colleagues here are all, except for one of them, older than me, and Kathy's obviously much younger than me. Carbon dioxide was 325 parts per million when I was born. It's now 430. It's gone up a third. So there's a third more carbon dioxide in the air, causing untold, pretty damn awful predictions that are running faster than even the predictions have them. The IPCC says we're on course to 3 or 4 degrees rise by 2100, and the councillor who made that comment about ideological obsession, he may well could be alive in 2100. My daughter could be alive in 2100. A 3 or 4 degree rise would result in, well, it would certainly result in societal collapse, billions of deaths, conflict, etc., etc. And frankly, picking up on the psychological impacts, the last survey I saw globally said that young adults had, about 70% of them were distressed about the climate. And for me, telling the truth is absolutely the right thing to do, and demonstrating that we are trying to do as much as we possibly can to mitigate and adapt is essential. Without that, I would be in that 70% if I'm not already. The impacts locally, ocean acidification, vector diseases, dengue fever. We've already got sightings of Aedes albopictus, and Tony will give me the UK name, which I think is Asian tiger mosquito. I mean, it's already in Kent. It carries dengue fever. It's working its way towards us. We're looking, with that sort of rise, a 1 metre sea level rise. That's going to be disastrous for the town centre, let alone the coast of Kent. We had, this is an existential problem, and therefore I would like an existence going into the future for myself, for you, for everyone, and particularly the children. So yeah, it is ideological. It is an obsession, but it's also the right thing to do. Do you have a supplementary arising from either my response or your initial question?
Thank you very much, Councillor Jeffrey. That was a most satisfactory answer. Thank you.